Ed, what's up, brother? Great to see you again, man. It's been a while.
Too long. Good to be with you finally again.
Yeah, you've been on a wild ride. Well, ever since I remember you, since I first heard about you, I think I told you this last time. I used to listen to your CDs when I'd be driving between appointments because I actually worked with World Financial Group for a little
Yep.
bit,
Yep.
and I would listen to your CDs, and I vividly remember the day that my wife said, "You sound like Ed Mylett." Because I
Uh-oh.
listened to you so much, and like my mannerisms, my tempo, everything just started to
Yeah.
sound like you, I suppose. Which is not there's way worse people to sound and act like than
Yeah.
you.
Well, my apologies to your wife, but I'll take it as a compliment.
Oh man, you've got this new book out, and I really wanted to talk with you about it. And I love the concept, the power of one more, because I think a lot of the times, I know for myself, I feel like if I can't make the biggest dent in the shortest amount of time possible, it's very easy for me and other men to get discouraged.
Yeah. Well, we're wired that way. And I think the other thing is when you get discouraged, even if it's a little bit discouraged, you start buying into this thing, which by the way, there's some credibility to, but that I'm really far away from my vision. Like what I want to really have happen in my life is 10, 20, 30 years away. And if you really buy into that, you perpetually keep it there because you
Mm,
behave in accordance. You run a pattern in your life that keeps everything at that distance. But I've experienced in my life that that's like a complete lie. The Bible tells us where there's no vision, the people will perish, right? Well, I think if you dig deeper, no vision is a depth perception issue. You think it's further away. I mean, if you ask the average person, you have a vision, you want to be happy or sad, rich or poor, contribute or don't contribute, great memories, you don't remember anything great in your life. People have a vision. They just think it's way out there, way far away. So they behave like it. But what if that's a lie? What if the truth is, and I know this to be true, you're one decision away from changing your life. You said your wife, that decision to get married to that woman changed your life. If you've married a good woman, it changed it for, to the good. A couple
right,
dudes
right.
like, look, man, I called the wrong decision right there. Then that changed your life, right? The birth of our children, that moment. So your one decision, one relationship, one meeting, one podcast that you're listening to, one new thought, right? Away from changing your life. I've had, I'm a series of one mores. I've got a pretty darn good life, right? And a lot of that, if I look back, I was like, man, if I don't meet that person, if I don't go to that meeting, if I don't hear that sales call, if I didn't read that book, if I didn't have that emotion, if I didn't think that one thought, where would my life be? And so we are closer than we think. The question is, how do you find the thoughts? How do you
Mm.
find the relationships? How do you get the meetings? What are the strategies to do it? And I'm like, if I'm going to write another book, man, it's going to be beefy. So I will say this, and my book may even be too beefy because every single page there is detailed information on how to change your standards, how to really, reform your identity. How do you change your confidence level? How do you manage your time? It's a very diverse book. And so it's to help you with the one mores.
Do you ever feel like I know I've fallen, I don't even know if it's a trap. I'll just talk about it from my perspective that I've seen in my life, times where my ambition becomes, and that's one of my greatest strengths, quite frankly, is my ambition to do and be more, not just in the professional realm, but personal realm as well.
Yep.
But that sometimes my ambition tends to put people off or alienate people, or in a lot of ways create a wake of collateral damage in my path. Have you come across that? Is that something that you see in men who are high achieving type men?
Yes, is the answer. And in my own life. Sometimes I conflate, well, two things I'll say about that. Number one is a lot of the things that I pursued in my life, I don't even know that I really wanted them. I
Mm,
wanted how I thought I'd feel when I got there. So I thought, if I can get this much money, man, I'm gonna feel this way. It's gonna change the way I feel about me. Or if I can get this recognition, or if I can make this contribution. That's why I have a whole chapter. It sounds hokey for men, but on emotions. Like it's not really the stuff you want, it's the emotions. What if you can find a way to get the emotions? Would you actually get the stuff quicker? So that's number one. And then number two, yeah, I've had a lack of sensitivity to some extent to how my ambition drive, let's just be honest, a little bit crazy, right? Impacts the people around me.
sure.
And for me to have some, one thing, like even with my wife, like I had not asked my wife, like, babe, like, what do you want? Like, what do you want? And so just that alone, just like, hey, tell me what you want. I was surprised. I met my wife in elementary school. We got started dating in high school. Little breakup there when I was in college, but basically I've been with her all my life. You ask your wife, what do you want, babe? You'd be surprised. Like all of a sudden, my wife, who I thought like her whole life was about our children and raising our kids and me. That was my wife. She goes, I think I'd like to go to like a cooking school. I'd like to go to Italy and go to cooking school, and I'd like to, you know, I'd like to start kind of really training. I wouldn't mind doing a triathlon. I'm like, what? Are you really? And what actually started happening, I'm like, well, some of the stuff I want to do kind of actually gets you where you want to get. And so I have been sensitive to it, but certainly, man, my ambition, people don't understand crazy people. And I tell my kids this all the time: weird, rich, normal, poor. And when I say rich, I don't necessarily mean just money. Rich emotions, rich life, rich contribution. I don't want to be average and ordinary. I don't want to be like everybody else. I don't want to conform. I think conformity is the ultimate measure of cowardice. One of the things, frankly, man, that I respect about you is you don't conform, and you're bold about your beliefs, and you take crap for it, and you keep saying what you really believe. And I've watched it, and I admire it. And I don't think you should stop doing it. You're going to put people off in your life if you want to be somebody. Small minds will constantly project onto you their limited thinking, their limited beliefs, their small way of wanting to get through this life. And for you, you've got to acknowledge what it is and recognize it, and then just ask yourself, is there anything I'm doing to cause this? With my wife, I was, but with everyday stuff, usually I'm not. It's just they don't get what I want to do with my being and my life when I'm here as a man.
So one of the traps I've fallen into is arrogance, and I have no problem sharing and expressing what I believe, what I think, what I feel. And yes, it does rub some people the wrong way, and I'm totally fine with that. But at some point, it has in my life crossed over to arrogance. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering how you can identify when you're being arrogant versus a healthy level of confidence so that you make decisions from a confident position, not an ignorant, arrogant position.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I relate to that. I think more when I was younger. One, confidence doesn't minimize another person or their
Mm,
belief. Arrogance oftentimes shrinks the other person. And so I've watched that. I've done that, by the way. Both of us have the ability to communicate. Those are the men listening to this today. Hey, that's a double-edged sword. You can
no
elevate and
doubt.
lift people with it, and you can hurt them. And when I was younger, man, I was good at hurting people real quick too. It doesn't take me real long. Man, I get you. Right. So arrogance is for me when I think, and I've had this is embarrassing to say out loud. Gosh, I hate saying this about myself, but it's true. I'm better than you at this. I'm smarter than you at this. And as I've gotten older, when I was younger, here's my biggest form of arrogance for me. I'm going to say it to you straight up, man. I like people like me. So if you believe what I believe, I liked you. If you think like I think, I dug you. If you were a
Mm,
driven, masculine man who doesn't show a lot of weakness, you're just a player. You're a dude, right? Like, man, I get it. I like you. You were one of these other type of dudes, I would immediately minimize you. You're just less than, weaker than, smaller than, whatever it was. As I've gotten older, ironically, a lot of those guys are my closest friends now. I almost feel like, look, man, I got enough of this masculine, whatever it is I'm carrying around for the whole room. You bring the intellect, you bring the
yeah.
humor, you bring the other perspective, you bring the light in the room. And so I have more of that now. I have an appreciation for humans, man. You know, I found out most people just trying to get through this life happier. Most people are just trying to figure it out. Most people are trying to figure out, where do I go when I die, and how do I be happier when I'm here?
Mm,
And like I have an appreciation for that now. I have my view. I have my way of how I think we should go around this life. I have my view of where we're going. I feel real strong about that part of it. But it's okay with me if you disagree. I'll tell you the last thing. My dad, politically, and I didn't line up. My dad was very, very, very left leaning. I mean, way left. Like Bernie Sanders is too right wing for my old man, right? We didn't line up even on faith. This is my best friend. My best friend. He was interesting to me. We communicated respectfully to one another, not in an arrogant way. Every once in a while, I would get there and, hey, Dad, I remember telling my dad, I go, yeah, well, Dad, if you had all this figured out, I probably wouldn't be richer than you. I said that to my
yeah.
dad once.
Mm,
My dad's like, what does your amount of money have to do with what you know about X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, and he said it, I'm like, God, that was about as, what I did is elevated me by trying to shrink him. That's when
right.
it's arrogance for me. And so I watch that real close. All men have to watch that real close. especially success guys who are pursuing success, right? Because we're vibrating at a higher frequency, we're growing, we're reading, we're working out. You look at a guy, why don't you get in the gym, man? Get in the gym. You don't have an hour to get in the gym. You don't know. That guy works 2 jobs for his family and he's got to commute 3 hours a day, or he drives a truck. He can't get in the freaking gym, right? Like, stop judging someone else. And that for me has been the shift, maybe in my 40s and 50s.
It seems, well, I'll say it this way. It's unfortunate that we have to realize something in a difficult way. We have to learn that lesson the hard way before we start judging or excuse me, we stop judging other people. Because we think like, oh, look at me. I was reading or our pastor was talking about something in the Bible about King Nebuchadnezzar. And he was like, I can't remember the scripture, the passage in David, and he was talking about how wonderful things were. And he was sitting honoring himself, and he was out on his balcony and he's looking at this kingdom of Babylon that he had created and built up, and he just, look at how great I am. And there was bricks that had his name on it that were looking to him, like calling to him about how great he was. And it wasn't until God said no, 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 no,
yes,
and stripped it from him for 7 seasons, I think is what it said, that he
so
realized, oh, I'm not as in charge as I once thought I was.
brother, let me tell you something. The Lord has knocked me back into place every dadgum time I've been that fool. Yeah. And it's happened multiple times. Like, oh, you think this is you now? Let me just show you, dumbass. Right? Like, it's happened multiple times. I'll give you a great example. I love interviews, man, where like you ask real stuff because it's cool. And so I'll share one with you. I have this new show out, by the way, called Change. It's like a modern day Dr. Phil. It's on the Nosey app, Nosey, if y'all want to go check it out. It's really a good show. You can get it on YouTube as well. Change with Ed Mylett. It's not my podcast. It's something different. And so NBC Universal shot it with me. Anyway, one of the guests was a young woman who's on all these government assistance programs. And I told the producer, this is a hard one for me. Like, I want to tell her, get your butt up and let's go, right? But I had this great show. We had a good show. But I've always sort of looked at like, man, can't you get this together? Like when someone is so reliant on the government. I think probably your audience and you line up with me on that belief system.
Sure. Yeah, so, for the most part.
Yeah, and I've just always felt strongly about that. Anyway, long story short, 2 weeks ago, brother, I went and looked at the childhood home that I grew up with in Massachusetts. And believe it or not, when I went there, the woman who bought the home from my dad 45 years ago was in the driveway and is still the owner.
Wow.
It was this amazing moment. I said, hi, I'm sorry to bother you. My name's Ed Mylett. She goes, Ed Mylett? You don't look like Ed Mylett. And I go, well, she goes, oh, your dad. Oh my God. And she tells me all these stories about my dad, right? So I'm like, my mom won't believe this. The Crosbys still live across the street. The so-and-sos live over there. They didn't move, right? So I called my mom. I said, Mom, you need to talk to this lady that bought the house from you in 1976, right? 1976. So I talked to my mom. We have this beautiful kind of reunion. And I get in the car. And I go, Mom, you sold that house for $39,000, and it's not the best neighborhood in the world. And she goes, Eddie, your dad was working 3 jobs then, and we were getting on this government program. I said, what did you just say? What did you just say? She goes, yeah, it was like a welfare. I go, you're what? Us? We had a government? What in the, I'm 51, bro. I went, no freaking way. Has my family ever been on some government program? She's like, no, it was like 12, 18 months of it. Wow. I just was floored. And so that's why you can't judge or assess. My dad wasn't lazy. My dad was working his butt off and still couldn't get it done and took some help. Now, listen, my dad ended up probably paying way more than that in tax. I certainly have paid more in taxes in my life to fund millions of people on government programs. But my point is, like, I've always looked a little bit askantly, if I'm being really honest at that, not knowing I come from that. I had no idea. And so that's that arrogant thing. Like, you don't even know your own story sometimes, man. That just blew my eyes 2 weeks ago.
Well, the other thing that I've noticed is I think most people set out on whatever path they're on with good intentions, right? Like we want to serve, we want to help, we want to offer a service to the world. We want to make a difference. We want to do good, like you're saying. And then along the way, men start to have success at doing that thing. And then the motive changes. It's like, well, let me prop myself up, let me pat myself on the back, let me feel good how good I've done, and then you lose sight of that mission that you once had. But I don't. But like I said, everybody starts out with the right intentions. It's just so hard to stay on that path at times.
Well, here's why. Your original intention is tied to your identity of you wanting to serve and wanting to contribute and wanting to grow. That's your identity. And what happens when you start to have success is all of a sudden your identity moves away from who you are as a man to what you do and what you achieve. And once you move your identity to something external of you, my career, my body, my money, my this, my that, now you're in the danger zone. That's why so many professional athletes I work with, man, they lost their identity. All of a sudden, it's not who they are. I'm an NFL football player. I'm a UFC fighter. I'm a this. I'm a that. No, you're a man. I have Ryan Lochte, as a matter of fact, the Olympic swimmer, on that show Change. And he's, won a bunch of medals and beat Michael Phelps. But what happened was his identity was he was a swimmer. Now swimming's gone. He has no idea. He didn't until he got on my show. Did not know. Hey, no, man, you're a father. You're a husband. You're a man. You have ethics and morals and a character and things you stand for and that you believe in. That's your identity, not what you produce all the time. And so oftentimes as men, we have to nuance that line. I produce these things and achieve these things because this is who I am as a man, not all of a sudden we lose. This is who I am as a man. And I am my possessions. I am my achievements. I am what I'm conquering. And once it moves to the external, it's a dangerous place because eventually that can get stripped. Eventually that's going to wear out too. Trust me. I've had jets and stuff. It's awesome. And then it ain't. And then it's like, and then you're like, now what? And then as men, we get in a danger zone. We get in a danger zone. I got to go get more. I got to get better. Well, eventually, better what? Right? And you can get into a dangerous place. Better what? So your identity can't be attached to the external. I talk a lot about identity and the power of one more. The identity has always got to remain as who you are, your value systems, your character. By the way, as I'm saying this and getting all fired up about it, it's because this message is for me. It's important for me too. Oh, I got a book. Oh, I got a show. I'm Ed Mylett, man. All right, I'm Ed Mylett. I'm a guy, average IQ, right? Alcoholic dad growing up, right? Insecure, quiet. I'm a shy guy in real life. To get off this camera, I'm the quiet dude in the room, right? I still have insecurities. That's who I am. I'm a good man, though. I want to help people. I want to make a difference. I want my life to matter. I love the Lord, right? But I'm not a guy with a show. I'm not an author. I'm not that. I'm a man who also has written a book, also has a show, also has a beautiful family. But the minute your identity is tied up in these external things, hey, man, you're in a dangerous spot.
Well, that's the trick, isn't it? Is that it's your values and your belief system and who you are as an individual, like you're saying, that actually produces the results.
Yes. And
So
do you know how attractive that is, brother? This is what I admire about you. I've said it twice, but I've watched you more lately too. And you might surprise some people. I said, I have some friends that I really disagree with on other things like faith or politics. Why? Because the most attractive thing to me is actually just somebody who authentically stands for something. And they'll express it to me. I can admire that. I don't have your history or story or background, and we can debate it. And maybe I'll persuade you. What I don't like is those people who will, whichever way the wind blows, whoever they're with, right? So I actually do have really good friends that I disagree with, and they're interesting to me. But man, do I admire them. Like one of my really, really good friends I was texting with yesterday. And he's one of the most ethical men I know. In fact, when people ask me about him, I always go, this dude is the most straight guy with his wife, doesn't lie, but he's an atheist.
Interesting.
And it's be controversial for your show, right? And now, am I constantly working on him? Yes. Is that one of the reasons in my life? Yes. Do I think I've made some headway? Probably. But they're like, wow, you're this devout Christian guy, and one of your closest friends is an atheist? Yeah, man. First off, Jesus is for sinners, right? And also churches know what they're getting a million miles away. With me, you don't know. But in this case, he also happens to be one of the most ethical, moral men that I know. And I admire that about him. I totally disagree. And I'm worried that I can't get to him or the Lord doesn't get to him before he takes his last breath. Of course I am. That's why he's close to me. But at the same time, what I admire is that he knows who he is. He stands for certain things. I just want him to find the Lord also. But not everyone around me has got to be an echo chamber in my life. That's so boring, right?
No, yeah, of
Everyone's got to
course.
be an echo chamber.
Is how do you find the line of wanting to serve? Like we can take this individual or any of the number of people that I know you help. How do you find the line of wanting to help for the right reasons versus wanting to help maybe more than they want to help, and
Yep.
it becomes more about your ego, like I can change this person, I can win this person over to my cause. It's like, well, hold up, are you
Yep.
now are you doing it for them or are you doing it for you?
You do. I've done it. On Monday, I dropped one of my UFC fighters who no one even knows that I work with yet, but he's late to calls. He's short. He doesn't do the homework that I give him. And I realized one of the reasons I was working with him is that I'm going to be the dude that gets him the belt.
Mm,
And I went,
right,
that ain't right.
it's
That
about
isn't what I
you.
do this. That's not about me. Right. And so I actually had a conversation with him. I said, hey, man, we're going to go through this one more time. And if you don't show me that you want this more than I want it for you, I'm out. And he didn't, and he's out. And so I've made those changes. Some of it just comes with age, I think to some extent, but there's a lot of things in life. Even when I share good news with my family, like, hey, I'm on Good Morning America last week. I did this, I did that. Am I sharing with them because I think they should watch it, it'll make a difference? Or am I sharing that with them because they're going to go, ooh, wow, you're a big deal? And you always got to nuance that. I also don't think, let me say one thing, significance and recognition is one of the dominant human needs. And it's okay to have it. It's okay to, if someone wants to walk out of their house and look good, and so that people think you're attractive, there's nothing wrong with that. Everything in life is about the dosage level. People say, well,
Mm,
some emotions are just really bad. Anger is always bad. Really? Anger causes a lot of athletes to focus. They get in a zone. Fear's terrible. Really? Fear helps you prepare for this interview and me want to do well. Right? So it's the dosage of emotions in our life, not that they're necessarily good or bad. I talk a lot about that in the book. Like, I leverage anger. I used to have too much anger to where it hurt me, but the complete elimination of anger in my life to where there's not, my gosh, Jesus rebuked the apostles,
right.
right? So give me a break. Like, there's got to be some element of that in our lives, the extent of which is the question. And does it serve me? I've had too much anger in my past, in my 20s and 30s, where it didn't serve me or the people around me. But then you meet these guys that have had these you've seen it too. Like, all of a sudden the guy's like neutered to the extent that he's no longer even a viable masculine man anymore because he thinks he
Right.
has to eliminate it altogether. That's ridiculous. It's a matter of you managing your emotions and your emotions not managing you. And now I think I have it to an extent under, the perspective and amount of it that I want. Fear, anger, frustration, even getting down. I kind of like getting down sometimes because the contrast when I come back up feels good. I just don't want to go all the way to depression where I'm laying in bed sucking my thumb all day long. But I let myself experience rejection, fear, anger, angst, anxiety. I get anxiety before every time I speak in front of 20,000 people. I used to get it to the point where it was debilitating. Now I get it to the point where it kind of gives me those butterflies like a Friday night feeling before a football game. So all the emotion stuff's important.
How do you start to make that transition? Because I mean, I've had anger, I've had impatience issues. Like there's things that I deal with personally, and I know there's a lot of guys listening who they have the same things. We're all going through the same thing.
Yeah, of
But how
course.
do you begin to make that pivot if you're an angry man, for example, or an impatient person, or you're frustrated or anxious about like what you're saying? What is the step? Is it just, I mean, it's not just believing. I mean, yeah, I guess like believe it, think it kind of thing, but like, what do you actually do to start
Good.
channeling anger or these other emotions you have?
You ask the best questions, bro. So one, I have a chapter in a book called Equanimity. It's chapter 17. I recommend every man reads it. It's about learning how to have peace under duress. It's easy to have peace when your kids are playing in the park and you're sitting there holding your wife's hand. Yeah, that's peaceful. What about when the world's going crazy around you? Can you find that? Second
Right.
thing is, how do you know if the emotion's too much of it? Is this serving me or not? That's the first question. Is it serving me or not? And then for me, believe it or not, I do these visualizations that sound really silly or stupid, but an awareness of a challenge helps it lose its power over you. So when I start going into my pattern, and I did, you know what? I'm loving telling you stuff. I did it with my wife last night. I'm on a TV show this morning before we did this, and she's like, I'm getting my nails done in a foot massage. Can I watch it on an app? And I
Mm.
said, what did you just say? Are you kidding me? I'm going to be on KTLA morning. Get where I'm going to get some big. all my ego's coming out now, right?
Sure, of
And then I could
course.
have stopped, but I kind of felt good getting angry. And I'm like, and by the way, and this, and here's what I did. I was aware of it. I go, I'm actually doing that thing right now. I'm doing the stupid ass thing I do. So the awareness lost its power over me. How's that happen? I actually visualize this for all men. It takes you 3 seconds, by the way. I'll visualize me doing the anger idiot thing. And then when I'm watching the video, this may sound too deep, bro, but when I'm watching the video, I literally play funny music over the audio in my head. I actually play this is just stupid. Remember that I'm too old for all you guys. There used to be a show called Sanford and Son with Fred Sanford, this old
Yeah.
show in the 70s. And the music was. So I literally visualize my dumbass getting angry. And then I watch it in slow motion. And I do that over and over again. You're thinking, this dude's lost his mind. I'm actually scratching the CD in my brain. I'm interrupting the pattern in my brain so that when I begin to do it, once I catch awareness, I actually go, I'm doing the Fred Sanford thing. What an idiot. And all it does, bro, is it breaks the pattern for 1 second and it interrupts the pattern. Because here's what you do when you get angry, man. It starts stacking. And all of a sudden the adrenaline's pumping in your body, or fear. And you start, I'm afraid of this. And what if this bill doesn't get paid? And if I don't pay, maybe she'll leave. And then people are going to know. And then I'm not going to live in a house anymore. And I don't have any food anymore. And you start stacking. And so all it does is it eliminates the stack. And I prepare it. I know, here's Ed Mylett. Let me tell you Ed Mylett. Ed Mylett's got to watch a couple things. He's got to watch anger, and he's got to watch worry, which the scriptures say is a sin. I was raised with a worrying dad. And often as men, actually as humans, we don't end up with all the behaviors of our dads, although we do a little bit, but we do end up sometimes with their emotions. Most things as kids are caught, not taught. I caught my dad's anger. I caught my dad, but right before he died, brother, he would literally hang up with me. I'm 45 years old. Hey, have a great day. Be careful. That was his closing line. Be careful. Be careful. I used to think, what the hell I need to be careful of? My dad was a worrier. Always worried, always concerned. And by the way, no matter what I produce in my life, I'm worried I'm going to lose it. I'm worried it's a fluke. I'm worried they're going to figure out I'm not that smart. I'm worried it's all going to end. And so I just literally started to go, I know I got to watch my anger. I got to watch my worry. How do I work on it? Well, when I actually visualize me worrying, I do what I just told you. I start playing goofy ass music over it. I slow it down. I make fun of it. It's like scratching a CD. Remember those old CDs?
Oh, yeah.
Eventually, if you scratch them, they couldn't play. I almost can't play worry now too much. I can do it for a little bit, and then the pattern gets in. I can do anger. I started to do it last night with my wife, and then about the old Ed Mylett, that would have deteriorated into a major fight and probably still carry over to the morning, and then I wouldn't have got breakfast, and I wouldn't have got what else I got last night, all kinds of other stuff, right? And I caught it, and it still wasn't good, but I caught it, and I'm like, I go, babe, just go get your foot massage and the deal. It's all good, right? She loves me, right? It's okay. And so I interrupted the pattern. That's how I do it.
I'm taking notes here. One thing I wrote down, or I'm writing down now, is just when you say that, I'm hearing you say, don't take it too seriously.
Don't your life either. I'd also say this: take an inventory, guys. What are your 2 or 3? You got them. What are they? Right? Maybe you get mean. Maybe you get frozen. Right? Maybe you get fearful. But I know Ed Mylett now. I'm self-aware. Ed Mylett's got to watch his anger. Ed Mylett's got to watch his worry. I got other ones, but those are the big 2. Man, if I could go through a life by managing my anger and it not managing me, managing my worry, because some worry, by the way, causes me to create. How am I going to prevent certain things from happening?
Right.
But too much of it, I actually start seeing things in my life and attracting them that cause those very things I worry about to happen or become more probable. And so I know mine. And you should just ask yourself as you're listening to this, what are my couple? Because you got them. And don't say you don't know. You damn well know. They've cost you all your life. They cost you constantly. Maybe you're lazy, right? I don't know what it is. Maybe you complicate things too much to where you can't make a decision. Maybe you can't make a decision, right? Maybe you're too judgmental, whatever it might be. My 2 biggies at this stage of my life are worry and anger. And they're pretty much, I got strategies for them.
Yeah, I'm writing down as you're saying that. So anger is definitely one of mine. I wrote anxiety, which I think ties into worry, concern about something that isn't or that may never be. I wrote.
Ryan, let me ask you a question. You ever have? I interrupt you. Are you ever worrying about something or have anxiety and you don't even know what it is? You're just feeling it.
I can't say that I'd have to think on that, but right offhand, I can't say that I experienced that. Like
Mine
there's
is
some
mine is so pronounced. I will have a bothersome feeling, and I have to actually work hard to remember what it is that I'm so bothered and worried about. It's that pronounced with me. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
interesting.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Do you think that's just riffing on that a little bit? Like this constant need. I see you and I see how busy you are
Yeah.
and how active you are.
Mhm.
That's probably a better word, active than busy.
Mhm.
And I wonder if you feel like you have to always be active, you have to always feel like you're doing something or moving the needle in some way. And
Yeah.
if you're not, then do you get anxious and worried because you feel unproductive?
Yes. And I also feel like I'm going to lose momentum.
Mm,
Neither of which is true. That's why we have friends and mentors, right? That latter version, fortunately for me, I'm surrounded by some men who have had huge success in their life, really successful men. By the way, when I measure success, means they also kept their family together when they achieved financial success. They also contributed to people and kept their bodies in shape, right? It's not just one thing. So when I say success, and I've said that to them, hey man, I feel like I'm going to lose momentum if I slow down. And I had, well, I'll just tell you who, I had Jerry West say to me, he goes, that's the symptom of a disease, Ed. And I said, what's the disease? He goes, the disease is you don't think that you're that good. So you think this
mm.
is all artificial through momentum. And I'm here to tell you, you are that good. You are that smart. This was on a driving range that he said that to me. And so I do evaluate those things really regularly. Yeah. But I also love helping people. Like if you said to me, hey, you could lay on the beach all day for 9 hours, or you can do this show with you and someone's life is improved from it, I'd say I'd really rather go in my house and do that show. I don't know why I'm that way, but I am. I enjoy this. This isn't work.
So you're hitting on another one. So another one of mine that I wrote down. I wrote four down, and I have to think on these a little bit more. Impatience was one, and the last one, and you just hit on it where you said that's a disease. You don't think you're that good. I also wrote that, or that you don't deserve it. And so one of my things is a constant need for validation from external sources instead of learning how to validate myself. I don't really feel worthy of the blessings that I have in my life at times.
Yeah.
So I got to go out and earn them, right? Like I got to
Want
bust my balls to have them.
a little help with it? Want to know one thing I
Yeah,
do? Maybe this is
absolutely.
for you, because I know you're a person of faith. So um, this is, I've never literally talked about any of this. So it's amazing we're talking about this.
Good.
I would
Yeah.
like a copy of this interview, but I have that too. And I had a great earthly father. My dad got sober and became an amazing father, believed in me so much. But when I was my first 15 years, didn't. And
Mm.
it just for whatever reason, man, I've always struggled with believing in myself. So I teach all these strategies like you've heard, keep the promises you make to yourself,
Sure.
raise your
Right.
standards, work on your identity. All of those things work. But I've actually started this thing that when I pray, I've never said this out loud, but it makes me emotional a little bit, but when I pray, not every night, but a lot of nights, I actually turn it and I allow myself to feel what the Lord would say about me if he could talk about me
Mm. That's
as his
powerful.
son, as his son, and what he wishes for me and how much he believes in me and how he made me as his son. And it's so powerful for me, bro, because I know he wants me to be happy. I know he made me powerful. I know he gave me a mind and a voice. And when I'm most connected to him is when I'm doing my best creating and communicating. It's when I read people the best. And so I allow myself sometimes for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 seconds, just to allow him. And by the way, I started doing it throughout my day, even when I'm not in like a focused prayer. Like I pray on my knees every night. So that's when I do it. But like I'll do it throughout the day, like just how he feels about me, how he feels about me. That's not external to me. That's internal. See, I got one internal person I allow, which is my savior. So me and Jesus, that's internal. Now, what even my wife thinks is external. My kids think, you think, the audience thinks, other people think. That's external. And that validation to me, I'll be candid with you. Once you get a lot of it, and you've had some, but once you get a lot of it, like it doesn't fill you up. It doesn't.
No.
I've had it. I know what it's like to walk in rooms and have 30. I know what it's like. I can't work out in a gym anymore. It's wonderful that people think great things about you. But there becomes a point where if you don't even really feel it for more than like 5 seconds. And once they walk away, you're back to feeling about yourself the way you used to. The one dude who never walks away from me is my Father in heaven. And he's with me constantly, and he loves me, and he made me in his image and likeness, and he wants me to help people. He wants to use me to serve others. He thinks I'm great. And by the way, he thinks you're great if you're listening to this, and he already knows all the bad crap you've done and you're going to do, and he still loves you. If you have children, this may sound crazy, but as much as you love that little daughter of yours or that little son of yours, he loves you even more than that. And I allow myself to feel that. It's the only thing that works for me is that. And so I almost pretend sometimes like I'm listening in on him talking about me.
I like that.
For some of you.
I'm gonna have to try that. Yeah, you're right about the validation thing. Every once in a while I'll get a message from somebody who's like, "Hey man, you changed my life because of X, Y, and Z," or you had Ed Mylett on the podcast and the thing he said about the thing completely transformed my life. And I almost feel a little guilty because I'm like, that's cool. I'm really excited, but I don't feel as excited as I think I should about that.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm like, did I lose this? Like, is it not important to me anymore? Or like, what's happening? Am I stagnant? I just have so much of it that it doesn't matter, but it should. That's somebody's life that's changed because you might have said something or had a particular guest on, or I don't know. I don't quite know how to explain that.
It's so honest because I know exactly what you mean. It does feel good. It probably felt better before when it was the first time. And then I also think to myself, you better stay grateful because there was a time nobody's life was changed by you and nobody wanted to hear you and no one downloaded anything. And you walked in a room and no one had any clue, nor did they care you were in a room. It's not that. It's that we're not wired for that to make the impact it would if it's our creator. It's just more. And the truth is, all these things we think we want to feel, by the way, you're supposed to go win if you're a man. Listen, you're supposed to achieve. You're supposed to grow. You're supposed to kick some tail. It's why you were put here. You're supposed to love people. You're supposed to get better. You're supposed to pick yourself up. All that stuff matters. But at the end of the day, I want well done, good and faithful servant. I've told you this before, but I also have this hallucination that when I go to heaven, I get introduced to the man I was capable of becoming. I believe the Lord goes, hey, well done, you're in. But by the way, let me introduce you to the Ed Mylett I made you to be. And when I meet that man, this is the man with the experiences, the contributions, the emotions, the successes, the memories of a life. I'm chasing that guy. I'm chasing him, right? That's who I want. Why? Because the Lord made me to be that guy. So yeah, if you say my podcast helped you or a speech, man, that means the world to me, but not like catching that guy means to me. Because to me, ultimately, meeting the man I was born to be, destined to be, and chasing and catching him, that's heaven. Hell is I get there and I meet that man and we're total strangers. And I didn't have the memories. I didn't have the life. I didn't make the difference. So ultimately, that does feel good. It feels good every time you hear it. But it doesn't feel as good as you thought it was going to feel because that's not the ultimate confirmation. The ultimate confirmation is not another human being, although it feels good and you were born to do it and it should continue to feel good, and it does. But when you go, man, I thought I would just be different when I heard this. No, you'll be different when you hear that. You'll be different when you hear that. And that to me is the separator for me. I've just accepted that the ultimate acknowledgement that I want, the ultimate me, it's just me and my Father in heaven. By the way, I know connected to that purpose is me serving other people and connecting with my brothers and sisters that are here. The other thing, you want that arrogance thing to go away? Stay connected to what I'm telling you, because now I know I'm talking to my brother. That guy who comes up and says, hey, man, I've been divorced 3 times. I drink, I use drugs. Man, your podcast, that's your brother. You're not better than him. That's your brother. That's your sister. And so all of this stuff over here that we're describing is what sort of eliminates most of these other things we've been talking about. And I'm glad we got to it because there's not a lot of places that, would accept that to be true on a podcast. And the fact is, I know I'm right about. There's a lot of things, man, that are in my books and stuff. I'll tell you, I think I'm right about. I think I'm right. There's a few things I know I'm right about, and I know, I even telling you this, the Holy Spirit just confirms it for me. And I don't mean to be too religious with everybody today, but it's I just feel it. And by the way, I'm a sinner. I'm an idiot. I make mistakes every single day, but I'm pursuing that man that my Father made me to be. And I know he loves me, and I know he expects me to get there, and I know he expects you to get there.
So so obviously we don't get that experience right now, right?
Right.
So how do you know you're doing enough
Mm-hmm.
or you're doing what it takes? And there's a cost associated with it for sure. Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't get something without a cost, a sacrifice. But how do you determine which sacrifice is right to make and which one isn't in
Mm-hmm.
pursuit of that guy if you don't even know what that guy is or what his potential is?
Yeah. Well, first, progress is what I'm pursuing, not perfection. So I'm
Okay.
pursuing progress. Am I making progress towards him? And I think you know whether this makes progress. Listen, I know if when this show's over and my laptop's sitting here and I flip to some stuff I shouldn't be looking at, that's not progress towards that guy. And every man listening to this knows that. You know when you're making progress and you know when you're moving away, right? Now, in terms of having the discernment to know which sacrifices are worthy, welcome to life.
Yeah.
And for me, that's what it is. It is discernment. And I don't want to keep going too far down this road to alienate anybody listening, but I must tell you, that's where prayer matters for me. Prayer does matter. Meditation. I actually meditate. You go, man, you're a Christian, you meditate? Yeah, meditation is like getting quiet, controlling my breathing, not thinking for 30 seconds or a minute and allowing my mind to rest. And so for me, it's that those are the distinctions. And if I'm being completely transparent with you, you've hit on the thing in my life that I wrestle the most with. It's not my confidence anymore, although it'll creep up. I was doing Good Morning America last week. I'm like, and then I was fine. Right. So, I walk in and I met with a former president about 3 weeks ago. Then I was fine. Right. Because the Lord's with me when I walk in and, I'm prayerful about it. For me, it's delineating between the sacrifices that are worth making and not. And that's really hard. Do I miss my son's golf tournament to go do this or do I not? Right. Those are really difficult decisions for me. And so I pray for discernment on it. And those are the ones that if you're asking where I don't know every answer, it's that I say yes too often. And I say yes because of ego to what you said earlier. I'm going to lose momentum. Well, I'll do it later. Right. And now can I give everyone a tip on this? There's a life-changing planning strategy that I do. I used to have my life planned out. Then I go, okay, let me stick my date night with my wife in there. Let me do this little thing with my daughter there. And what ended up happening was show me your calendar and your planning and I'll show you your priorities. And so now I do it differently. And by the way, it's not because I have money. I could have done this the whole time. I put my family stuff first. That's my date night with my wife. That's my time with my daughter. That's my time with my son. Now I'll plan the rest of my life around it. They're not the last thing added to my calendar. They're the first thing. And that's changed things for me. And then that sort of helps with the sacrifice thing.
Yeah, I had an experience. Well, in fact, I'm in the middle of dealing with it. We've got some events coming up, and I just got my second son's football schedule. And his football schedule, he plays every Saturday for the next 5 or 6 weeks. And I have two big events coming up within that time frame.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, that's 2 hours on a Saturday. I've got one event, I've got 40 guys here. Another one, I've got 100 here.
Yep.
Like, what do I do? And immediately, and I think this was prayerful. So I'm appreciative of God's influence in my life in that way. And he's like, you go to the games. Like, what are you talking about? You go to the games. And then in my mind, I'm like, well, I know, but like all these guys are investing in to be here. I'm like, yeah, but you've built this organization where you have help. Like if you're gone for 2 hours at one of these events that lasts for 2.5, 3 days, like nobody's going to miss you. Like it's going to be fine. Like your other guys are capable. They can handle it. The guys aren't going to miss you. In fact, it might be better while you're gone because they can talk about things that maybe they wouldn't talk about in the context of me being there. I don't know.
No, you're right. And so amen. And then let me tell you one other thing. I had I've done 350 podcasts myself on my show. And I just had my kids on for the first time like 4 weeks ago. And they're elite. My daughter's a freshman at Clemson. My son's a junior playing golf at Arizona Christian. And so I had them on. And by the way, I have had to miss things over the years from time to time. It's just there's some things that are like inevitable. Tremendous guilt about it. And my daughter spoke about it, and so did my son. And here's what's interesting. My wife helped frame what it meant. It's not the events of our lives, even as children. It's what meaning we attach to the event. My wife was incredible. If I had to miss something about, now listen, daddy's not going to be at the game tomorrow, but he's coming back and you guys are doing this, this, and this on Sunday. And you know what he's doing? He's out there helping people. He's out there making a difference. He's out there changing lives. And my daughter literally said in the show, she goes, to be honest with you, daddy, when you would miss things, I would actually think I want daddy where he is. I want him helping all these people because I know he's coming home tomorrow night. And I know I get something special as well. So I have the benefit now of the after, right? Like wondering how it impacted them and having the right frame for what this means, having a spouse that supports you and says, no, 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 your daddy's going to be here tomorrow night. He's out changing. There's going to be 3,000 people there. He's changing their lives. Or daddy's working a job right now. So some of you guys working out there that it's not 3,000 or some big deal. Daddy's going to do what he can do so that I can be at the game and that you can have the uniform and you can have the good glove and you can have all of this. Daddy's out doing that. Daddy would rather be watching you play. But daddy wants you to have that good glove. Daddy wants you to have the right hitting coach. Daddy wants you. So daddy's doing that. And he's going to be back tomorrow night. And you guys are going to do X, Y, and Z. And so I actually used to do this. Funny, when if I missed a game, I would get home that night and I would take my son in the backyard. And if he got 2 hits, I'd say, hey, man, I want to recreate this. You got to take me through it because I missed it, man. Of course, I have a video. And I'd say, sure. He goes, all right, Dad. And I'd throw the slow-mo. And he goes, Dad, it was low and in. And then I turned my hands over. I fired my hips. I said, then where did it go, man? He's like, oh, over the shortstop's head. I'm like, what were you doing? He's like, Dad, I'm booking it down. And I would take him back through it, which was better than the actual experience. I'm like, you're kidding me. Because he didn't, in the stands, he's running and not seeing my reaction as I'm cheering. Now I'm like, oh my God, you made the putt? Did it lip in or go around? He goes, no, Dad, dead center. I'm like, no way. And I actually found between the framing and then reliving the experience with them, I don't want to do this too much, but if I missed, how do I make it mean the right thing to them?
Right.
So work on the meaning, control the meaning with them.
I like that. That's cool. Well, and that's the difference, right? Because too many of us, we will miss things. And I've heard it called, I can't remember who told me, I'd love to give them credit, but I can't remember who it was. They called it noble obstacles. And a noble obstacle would be like you attending a conference that you're speaking at in front of 10,000 people. It's like, okay, that's noble. That's a good thing. But those are the hardest things because they feel like they're the right thing to do. Now, if you were going to go hang out with your buddies and, get drunk at a bachelor party for the week, that's not a noble obstacle. It's not even a choice. It's easy to make that decision.
Right.
It's the things that feel right that are hard.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that from you. I like that, actually.
You can steal it from me. I stole it from somebody else. I don't know who it came from.
Yeah, very good. I love that.
I've got this. I have a little guilt from earlier in the year, a lot of guilt actually, because I missed my daughter's dance recital. I didn't know when it was, and I had scheduled a hunt. I was in Hawaii hunting. Mm-hmm. And man, I felt so guilty about it. It still eats at me. I feel so guilty. I mean, I'm hunting. It's not like I'm hunting to put food on the table. Like if I didn't bring home, axis deer, we'd go without. No, it wasn't that. It was that I was enjoying time. And, I sent her flowers the day of the dance recital, and I did, everything I could. And we're waiting for the video from the dance studio for the replay. And I like what you're saying, because I'm going to try to recreate that. And maybe it's just like me and her, and we watch it on TV or on the TV and, like have popcorn. She loves popcorn, and we try to recreate a moment that I missed. I really like that. I'm gonna. There's
nothing like being present for our children. Period. But as men, we need to get really creative about what it means. And listen, especially if you go to most things, I've been to 600 golf tournaments of my son. He knows what that feels like,
right?
But only twice has he got to walk me through every shot. We sit there literally with the lemonade and I go, okay, what you hit on the second shot on the third hole? He goes, Dad, 8-iron, 120 yards in, blah, blah, blah. I hit it 15 feet left, putt, and he's going back through. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Was the wind blowing? And I'm actually now in the round. And whereas when he's playing, I'm just behind the ropes watching. He doesn't see me the whole round. So there was actually I'm not selling guys on missing things. I'm saying I got really good at reframing what it meant when I wasn't and what it felt like when I got back. And there were often times, I can tell you a few times, where I could tell my son was damn excited he was going to get to take me through the whole round from his perspective.
Is that right?
Yes, man. Yes. And now that he's in college, I can't get to every single tournament. It's impossible. But we have this sort of routine where he knows it's not 10 minutes. We get on Zoom or we get on FaceTime and he'll literally, walk me. He goes, Dad, this thing bound. You didn't believe it. I'm like, so what'd you do? He goes, You know what I did? I stiffed it 6 feet left of there. I'm like, and it's actually very special the way we do it now. It's better that I'm there. But what
Yeah.
I used to do is my dad would miss things and never even bring it up. He
Hmm.
just missed my game, you know. And then the next, how'd you play? Good. All right, great. Hey, I'm gonna get there next week. That's nothing. That sucked, right? Could have a little bit more effort. It could have been really special to hear about my game.
Well, and that actually what makes it even worse, what I'm hearing you, because my dad used to do this too,
Yeah.
is he said, I'll make it to the next one. That's worse than missing it because he's not going to make it to the next one either. Now he's lying to you. Not only
Yeah,
did
my
he
dad would
miss,
show up to
now he's
half of them.
lying.
Yeah, my dad would show up lit, like just I there became a point with my dad where I'm like, I kind of hope he doesn't come because he's yelling at umpires and like, yeah, and don't lie to me. Like it was exactly the same thing with my dad. Like, I'll be at the next one. Nah, you probably won't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's even harder to deal with, I think. You said creativity in your presence. That's the most important thing. And I agree with that. I hadn't heard it put that way. I agree. Creativity in your presence. How do you learn to be more creative with your wife or your kids or even like clients or even on this podcast? Like, how do you be creatively present so it just doesn't become a monotonous routine thing, whether it's date night or
Mhm.
hanging out with the kiddos or whatever it might be?
I'm focused on the experience. What's the experience? Let's just take the client thing. I think most companies completely miss this. What's the experience of doing business with you? How good does it feel to do business with you? Because that's where you get referrals from, not by going, hey, would you mind sending us? No, if someone had an amazing experience where they feel something they don't feel when they're with other restaurants or other protein companies or other banks or other dry cleaners. Like my dry cleaner, I went to her this morning, right? And I just love the fact that she's got 700-800 people in there with every single person. She knows our phone number by heart, everybody that goes in there. She's like a savant. So she'll come in and go, sick. I won't say my number, but she'll go, sick. She knows your phone
Yeah.
number. And I'm like, it's an experience. And she's funny. And so when you give her the clothes, she goes, all right, you want a dad joke or a dirty joke? I go, give me the dirty one. This is my dry cleaners,
That's
right?
awesome.
I'll never go. I don't even know if she does a good job on my shirts, right? It's an
Who cares?
experience. My buddy for Sullivan has the protein company. When you get your deliveries, there's a handwritten note from somebody in there, man. Like that's an experience, right? So what's the experience? So my date night, what do I want her to experience tonight? And you may think this sounds contrived, but it's not. I want my wife to laugh her ass off tonight. No, tonight I want her to experience feeling sexy as you can't believe. No, tonight I want the experience to be that we talk about our faith. What is the experience I want them to have or I want me to have? And then I kind of that's how I tweak it a little bit, right? Like my daughter and I just took a trip to Boston before she went away to college. What do I want her to experience? I said, she's about to be around a bunch of dirt bags at fraternity parties or drinking, and I don't know whether she will or not. What do I want her to experience? I'm going to be out of my mind treating her like the lady she deserves to be on this trip. I was extra conscious about opening her door, extra conscious about getting her a chair, extra conscious about looking in her eyes, extra conscious about getting the door. I want her to have an experience of what it feels like to have a chivalrous man with her. Sometimes as a
Right.
dad, I'm like, you don't, right? So she's 19 years old. So I ask myself, what do I want the experience to be? And then I work my way back. And it's really not that complicated most of the time. But what do we do with our wives? Date night, babe. All right, hey, can I wear this t-shirt and jeans? And you just go to dinner and talk about the kids and you come back. It's the same experience every time. So how can I make it a little bit different? And it might be just silly. I'm like, I wanted my wife to feel hot. By the way, she is hot. So this sounds super stupid, but like she walked out to get ready. Sometimes I don't do this. I'm like, shit, babe. Right. And then driving over, I'm like, I'm joking, but I'm not. I'm like, you want me to just pull this car over right now?
Right.
Right. This
Right.
is my wife, right? He's like, honey, come on. And then we
Yeah.
sat down at the table. I go, look, I'll stop. But damn, woman, you look so good, babe. You look so good. Right. And I could just see her blushing a little bit. Just a little bit different experience that night for my wife. Because I want her to feel sexy that night. Right. And I just made sure that was the other times, like, let's just laugh our asses off. Right. I want to know how much I love her. Sometimes, like, I want her to feel appreciated, whatever it is. But I actually think about the experience and then I work my way backwards.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was thinking about that. My wife and I went out last week, and even as simple as something as like vacuuming out the car,
Yeah, that's big, dude.
like
That's big.
clean out the wrappers, like
Yeah.
vacuum out the car.
Great
I had
point.
a I had a little note that I had put in there for and it wasn't, it was, like, hey, I'm really looking forward to being with you tonight, or whatever. And not only does that make it special for her or your client or whoever you're working with, it actually makes it special for you too, because you elevate your experience as well.
Yep, bro. So I can't believe we were talking about this. I just came back from a trip yesterday, and I said I want her to feel. This may be too personal, but I want her to feel like really sexy. So like on the trip when I was gone, I'm like, hey, I'll be home around 4:30. Will you do me a favor and wear this outfit? Like, and this sounds like, dude, I am not this guy. Just so you know what I'm saying. I am. We don't talk like that, right? Like I know my wife. I know my wife 45 years, dude. We do not talk like this. I'm like, will you wear that thing? She goes, yeah, I'll wear it for you. And then I'm like, and I go, hey, you know what? I want to have wine with dinner, and I don't want to sit watching TV. Let's eat at the table when I get back. This may sound so stupid, dude. We're
Not
always
at
eating,
all.
And she's like, you do? I go, yeah. And I want you wear that. I'm gonna be funky because I'm flying, but I want you to wear that. And then the next day she texts me, goes, so let me just make sure you want me to wear this thing, and you want that bottle of wine. It's not expensive wine. She said, I go, yeah. And she goes, I'm excited. Right? Mission accomplished, dude. Took me 30 seconds. Mission accomplished. Otherwise, I'd be coming home. She'd make dinner. How was your trip? What did you do? Let's watch the Clemson football game because my daughter goes there. It was just like another night, just a little different. She's like, you are not watching this game. I'm like, well, we'll be done through the first quarter.
Yeah, we're gonna watch some of it now. Come on, let's not get too carried away here.
No. We're going to watch in the beginning, and I am recording it, but we can have dinner during the first quarter.
That's that power of intentionality that you talk about too, right? It's just being a little bit more intentional about the way that you show up goes such a long way. But it's hard. We get so distracted with life and with making the bills and trying to boost up our own ego. And it's like, gosh, we just put that stuff on the side burner.
Yeah. And I sound like a cheese, you know what, right now? I'm not that dude. I'm not that
I don't think you do. I think it sounds amazing.
I'm really not that dude. It's just like one more. It's one more thought. I mean, that sounds corny, but it's the power of one more. It's one more little thing I did. I could have just come home. I could have just had dinner. One more little thing I said there. Totally different experience. Totally different. By the way, I do it with my clients. I do it with friends of mine. I told, I text messaged one of my buddies this morning. We haven't talked in a few weeks. I go, hey, man, just checking in here. I literally said to him, I go, brother, I miss you so damn much. When am I going to see you? Let's get together. Right. Yeah, I know he woke up on this goofball. Like, I don't talk like that to my dudes, but just like, hey, man, I know it felt good when he read it. Just, hey, man, I miss you. Dudes don't say that to each other.
Yeah. I've had a couple of guys reach out over the past several weeks and unsolicited. And it was just a message. And it was like, hey, man, you've been on my heart lately. Or, hey, God put you on my heart lately. I wanted to check in and see how things were going. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, but I didn't think he was a weirdo. I was like, no, that's amazing.
Yep. The really well-known pastor guy, probably shouldn't say who, I texted that to yesterday because it happened. Yesterday, I was in Boston. I was flying back here. I said a prayer, and this dude came on. I said, hey, man, you're on my heart. And I just got a feeling I was supposed to mess you up your feelings. We'll go, hey, man, I just landed in Cabo with my kids and my grandkids and got your message right when I got off the plane. And it's been a stressful flight. And this was the light. And, I'm like, cool, man. It's like just took one more second it took to send the text.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate this. I tell guys a lot when they come on. I just I take so many notes. I feel like I'm the biggest beneficiary recipient of these conversations because I need them more than anybody else does, I think. So I just want to let you know I appreciate you. I've appreciated our friendship and us getting to know each other. Hopefully we can connect over here on the East Coast a little bit more. I don't make it over to the West Coast very often. So I'm going to have to wait for you to come out to me before we make that happen.
Well, we're almost neighbors now out there. So I hope we do see each other. And I just want to tell you again, man, I not only do I really, really like you, but I really admire and respect you. And that's why when I was asked to come back on, it was an immediate, yes, I'm not doing a lot of podcasts anymore. And I thoroughly enjoyed it like I knew I would. So really respect you also.
Awesome. Thank you. Tell the guys where to connect. Obviously, they can pick up a copy of The Power of One More wherever they want to get books, but tell the guys where to go.
Well, you go Ed Mylett, EdMylett. You'll get everything, but you probably should check out my new show. Seriously, go to YouTube, Ed Mylett Change or Nosy, Nosey. If you have like a Roku or Apple TV, just download Nosy or on your Mac. You can get the show there. And all my stuff helps you. My podcast will help you. Just whatever I can do to help you out in your life, I'm here to do because I don't want to lose momentum. I'm just kidding.
It's that fear and that worry, man. Got to get over that.
Just kidding.
I also got to say, I love your I mean, your podcast is top notch.
Thank you.
Your preparation, the way you lead into conversations.
Thank you.
I can't remember the gentleman's name who was sentenced to prison.
Damon
Was it a,
West.
yes, somebody sent me that just the other day. They sent me that and they're like, bro, listen to this. And I don't think I've gotten through all of it, but holy cow, that story blew me away.
Yep.
Unbelievable
The
story.
irony of this guy appears on my show, got sentenced to life in prison.
Right.
He's out, but he's on my show on the 7-year literal
That's right.
anniversary of his sentencing. Like the irony. This dude tried to get on my show, man, for like a year and have a cancellation. I go, if you can be in LA next week, he shows up and it happens to be that day.
That's
Just
amazing.
crazy, man. Just
Yeah.
crazy.
All right, brother. I'll let you get going. I appreciate you. I know the guys are going to get a ton of value from this. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it, man.
God bless everybody. Thanks, bro.